Day 1082 of the Trump administration. And for a time today, the United States looked like the gang that couldn't shoot straight. A letter came out on Pentagon letterhead written by a U.S. Marine general that talked about U.S. forces moving onward and sure seemed to indicate we were pulling our people out of Iraq. Then the Pentagon brass met with reporters in a nondescript room to say, don't believe it, that's not the case. The letter was a draft and it was poorly worded. All of this is an issue in the first place because of the president's decision to launch the airstrike that took out Iran's top general, a bona fide bad guy whose death we are now realizing may bring consequences for the U.S. and its allies. Today was a bad look for the Pentagon. That was underscored by a man who once ran the Pentagon as defense secretary.
They're scrambling around trying to figure out what the hell to do. I hope they make every effort to try to maintain our forces there because, frankly, the issue we're forgetting a lot about in the middle of all of this Iranian crisis is the fact that ISIS still remains a real threat to the United States.
And about ISIS, just yesterday, we heard the U.S. got out of the fight. The New York Times reports the U.S.-led coalition in Iraq and Syria has halted its campaign against ISIS as forces instead brace for retaliation from Iran. Tonight, the Washington Post reports Iraq may be facing sanctions. Quote, senior administration officials have begun drafting sanctions against Iraq after President Trump publicly threatened the country with economic penalties if it proceeded to expel U.S. troops. Such a step would represent a highly unusual move against a foreign ally that America has spent almost 2 decades and hundreds of billions of dollars supporting. Also, reports tonight that the U.S. Air Force is sending half a dozen B-52 bombers to the military base in Diego Garcia in the middle of the Indian Ocean, out of range of Iranian missiles. The White House maintains the Iranian commander was at the center of imminent attacks targeting Americans in Iraq and Syria, and that they say they have the intelligence to back that up. This afternoon, the president called into Rush Limbaugh to defend his decision.
He was a terrorist. He should have been taken out a long time ago, and we had a shot at it, and we took him out. And we're a lot safer now because of it. Now, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the response is.
Democratic members of Congress have been clamoring to see the administration's evidence pointing to planned assaults on Americans. NBC News has learned that tomorrow, top congressional leaders who make up what's called the Gang of Eight will be briefed on the matter after the fact. Wednesday, Secretaries of State and Defense, as well as the Joint Chiefs Chairman and the CIA Director, will hold classified briefings for members of the House and Senate. Meanwhile, the crisis over Iran and the crisis over impeachment, you might say, found common ground today. That's because former National Security Advisor John Bolton, a longtime hawk on Iran, now says he will, in fact, testify in Trump's Senate impeachment trial if he is subpoenaed to do so. And tonight, one Trump ally in the Senate is pointing to Bolton as having had a hand in Trump's latest confrontation with Iran.
The death of Soleimani, I think, is the death of diplomacy with Iran. I don't see an off-ramp. I don't see a way out of this. I think that he got bad advice. I think that basically, even though he let John Bolton go, this is John Bolton. John Bolton's clapping and jumping up and down and rubbing his hands together because this is what he wanted.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.